This is Magog, and we preview Ultimate Fight Night 36, February 15th, Brazil. Brazil's cards tend to be heavily stacked for the hometown crowd, but the fighters more often than not bring it at these shows. The first fight I want to take a peek at is Wilson Rios versus Yuri Alcantara. Some of you might be familiar with Wilson, as he is a 9-time competitor at Bellator, where he went 5-4. I'm kinda shocked to find out that Wilson Rios is 29. He's taken some real abuse. Yuri, on the other hand, is 33 and still looks very young. If you can go by recent events based on records or favoritism, it's deeply tempting to take Rios. I recall Yuri giving a good showing for himself versus Faber in his last bout. Of Faber's last 4 fights during his win streak, Yuri went the distance, whereas Rios managed to beat out an apathetic Ivan Menjivar. It's not that Rios hasn't been in the cage with real talent, I've simply seen his peak come and go already, and despite his age, at least when I've watched him in Bellator, he is past his prime. I feel Yuri is still growing as a fighter. I'd be honored to bet on Rios as a fan, but not a lot, and certainly not expecting a payout. Next on deck is Charles Oliveira versus Andy Oakley. Charles gave a good account of himself versus Frank Yeager in his last fight before losing, and before going out against Cub Swanson in the first round. Both fighters are 24 and 1-2 in their last 3 fights. I think it's an interesting fight. It is going to let us know how much of a measuring stick Frank Yeager can be for talent. I've not been blown away by Frank Yeager at 145. He's lost his insane speed advantage that he held over fighters at 155. He's faster, but not enough to be really truly dominant. If Andy has some of the real tools, I'm looking for this to be an upset. I just think that the brick got thrown to the wolves for a hometown win. Zubir Tuhugov, I'm sure I've mispronounced that name, faces off against Pride veteran TBA. TBA is a JMMA superstar who starred in every Japanese card from beginning to end. His record is long and all over the place, but I feel the 23-year-old Russian will be too much for the Pride superstar. Eric Silva returns after a humiliating loss to Dong Hyun Kim, just when he was turning the fight around. He's facing Takanori Sato. Eric's age is 29 and Sato is 28. Eric is currently on the Shogun curse of never winning or losing 2 fights in a row. Sato hasn't lost in 10 fights, but that's likely deceptive as he is a pancration veteran, and Japan itself, especially at 170, has some iffy talent, with pancration being a hotbed for crapshoot fighters. Sato, while carrying a lot of submission wins, hasn't finished a fight by strikes since 2005. His poor striking combined with vintage Herb Dean stand-ups should allow Eric the easy win. Now we get to the meat and potatoes of it all. Jacare, your hero and mine, facing Francis Carmont. Jacare is 34 with 19 wins and only 3 losses. He is likely to get all the stand-ups he needs, if he'll ever need them, which he likely won't, versus Carmont, who is 32 years old and 6-0 in the UFC. Unless I'm horribly wrong, Francis's stall tactics are just that much better than, say, Okami's, he's going to suck and die. The main event is Machida versus Musashi, ages 35 to 28. Musashi is covering off some injuries and hasn't fought since April 6th of 2013. It's uncertain how he will handle the weight cut back to 185, which he left all the way back in 2008 because he felt the weight cut was too frustrating. It's a hell of a match to come back to 185 for. Musashi, due to his age and overall style, at the very least should have a speed advantage and is very experienced at working leg kicks, so he has the means to slow Machida down even if he can't catch him. He has the busiest guard I've seen in MMA. I've seen Machida made uncomfortable on the ground by people active off their back. That said, Musashi has been known to get stuck on his back, and he's fighting the point fighting king in his own backyard. Phil Davis was able to overcome this, but Musashi is an entirely different animal altogether. I think you could suggest how this fight would look at least a half a dozen different ways. This is a huge moment for both fighters, and it's going to boil down to who's better at multiple things. Honestly, if Musashi can take Machida down, it would get very interesting very fast. If Musashi doesn't gas before finishing off Machida, the fight is his. Or I might have just been sold on another overhyped bill of goods from JMMA. We'll see how Musashi does without all his old pride juice. Till next time, don't spit into the wind, don't give up your back, and don't make bets you can't keep.